Finish your gut wrench. It's very important that you finish, and try to finish on your knees. If you don't finish on your knees, there's always a possibility for your opponent to hip heist and work for a reversal. So make sure after every gut wrench, tripod up, load them up, pop them, finish with your knee between the legs. As you work on a gut wrench and you're working on a mid-level gut wrench, it's very important for you to be able to switch sides, especially if your opponent's very good at defending. I'm going to start in one direction and go to another. But I'm going to get in a lock so that I'm going to read his hips a little bit. As I do this, everything remains the same as an earlier gut wrench where I keep my chest on my opponent's back. I keep a nice tight lock where I'm pinching, squeezing, and pulling. And I want his hips to be in my hips. I want to stay between his legs. So as I get in this position right here, actually I'm going to fake to the right and go back to the left. So when I get my lock here in this position, right now I'm just going to start leaning on his right shoulder here so that I get that motion. From here, as I keep my lock tight, I'm going to tripod up and drive a little bit. Then I'm going to switch and step to the outside, pull him up to this position here, pop, and finish on my knees. It's a real subtle fake. All I'm going to do is give him a little shoulder pressure on this side here. I'm going to read the hips a little bit, and when he turns his hips a little bit so that his left hip goes down, I'm going to switch directions and bring him back to the left. You'll notice my feet position. I'm going to keep my feet between my opponent's legs. I don't want him to the outside where I have to jump around and switch sides where he's able to block me with his feet. So from this position here, gut wrench lock, I'm just going to keep my feet inside, give him some shoulder pressure here as this left foot or left hip goes down. I'm going to switch directions and load him up here. Pop and finish. So without a partner, when I'm going to switch directions, it looks like this. I have my lock, my feet are in here. I'm going to give a little fake with my right shoulder as I step up to the outside, pulling, take my opponent through. As we work on a mid-level gut wrench, I think it's very important for you to understand that it's better to stay up on the ribs or the floating rib or down on the hips rather than the soft part of the body. Anytime you get just below your ribs and just above your hips, you're soft in there, and he's able to move, he'll twist. And anytime you get your opponent in that position right there, you're better off to go to a low gut wrench and slide down, or go to a mid-level gut wrench where you're up on the ribs. It's very important to keep good pressure, your chest on your opponent's back, and keep your pressure driving forward so you're on the ribs rather than the soft part of the body. Okay, as we work on the gut wrench here, some of the counters that your opponents will try to do, one of the first things they'll try to do, when we talked about the soft part of the body, as soon as I get a lock, he's going to start a motion forward and he's going to try to roll my hands off. When he does that, I'm going to concentrate on his elbows, and I'm going to start to drive forward and take him over the direction that I want to go. So I get my lock on my opponent. As soon as he starts to move forward, he's on his elbow, and I just turn his hips. It's a lot easier for me to collapse his shoulder down when he touches an elbow. So if you ever have an opponent, first of all, he's got to get completely flat on my hands. When he does that and he tries to roll them off, I'm going to put my shoulder in the middle of his shoulder blade, break that shoulder down, and take him in that direction. So I'm in a gut wrench position as soon as he starts to move forward here. And one other thing that I need to talk about here in this position. To keep your opponent from being able to move very fast, notice how I'm straddling his thighs. My feet are still in between the legs so that I can keep pressure forward, and I can keep my chest on my opponent's back. So from this position here, as he starts to move, I'm going to collapse that shoulder down, load him up again, and take him through in that position. Another combination off of a gut wrench. I'm going to start a gut wrench, but he does good defense. He posts up hard, he gets weight on his toes, and that will allow me to slip a leg on. When I put my leg in, I'm then going to try to Turk my opponent over. He has to counter that Turk, and when he does that by turning his hip down, I'll switch directions and gut him back to the same side I have the leg on. Very important when you do this to keep your lock mid-level or higher. I don't want my opponent to be able to switch back and grab my feet or hook my leg. All right? In this position, gut wrench, I'm going to start a good gut left. From this position right here, I'm going to scoop his foot into my leg here and come up on my opponent. I now have a good deep leg in. From this position right here, I'm going to try to Turk my opponent over. I'm going to try to take him this way. When he counters me, I'm going to hop actually. Lock back. Take him in this position and take him through. As you work this technique, it's very important that if he doesn't counter the Turk, go ahead and Turk him. Take him in that direction. When we get into a trapped arm gut, you'll see another combination off this leg ride. But I'm going to do a gut wrench. When he counters it, I'm going to slide the leg on. Then I'm going to start a Turk. When I start that Turk, he'll counter by putting his hip down, and I'll take him back to the same side I have the leg in. Very important when I do this technique that I don't reach or lock on the soft part of his body. You can hold him here or take him on through. Okay, this time, from a referee's position, my opponent's going to start forward. I'm going to pick his leg up, set it on my thigh, and gut him from that position. Go. Right here. From this position right here, he's pretty uncomfortable, and he's going to be moving and trying to get this leg off. And as he does that, I'm going to keep my weight forward, load him up, turn his hips. One of the things that your defensive opponent will try to do in parterre, when you're starting a gut wrench and you've loaded your opponent up, sometimes they'll reach down and hook your leg with their hand and try to control it. It's very important that you don't panic in this position. You have your opponent loaded up. My chest is on his back. My grip is still tight, and I have him loaded in my hips, so we're hip to hip. As soon as he hooks my leg, his hand won't be able to control my leg. So I'll extend the leg, pop, and take him on through. Another thing that you're able to do in that position, as long as you keep him in your lap, is kick that leg that he's trying to take and kick him on through in that direction. Show you what I'm talking about. I've got my gut wrench here, and I have it locked up, and I've loaded my opponent up here. And he grabs your leg in this position here. It's very important that you not panic here. I watch him try to hold my leg tight as I straighten my leg and go this direction here. From here, I'm just going to finish in a regular gut wrench. This time, in a gut wrench position, when he grabs my leg, I'm just going to hook my leg on him and kick it on over the top. So I've loaded my opponent up. I have a good lock. I'm in this position here, and he grabs my leg. This time, notice it's very important that my knees and his hips are in my lap, and we're still between. His legs still between my legs. From this position right here, I'm going to kick this foot on over the top, here, and finish. One other offensive technique that you can do when your opponent tries to counter by grabbing your leg is to reach up and take his wrist. So again, I'm in this position, I've loaded my opponent up, and he reaches down and grabs my leg. From this position right here, rather than straightening the leg and taking him through here, or rather than taking this foot up under his foot and kicking him through, this time, in this position, he grabs my leg, I'm going to reach down and take his own wrist and go to a 2-on-1. From this position right here, I'm going to take him on back down. In this position, I'm going to switch directions and tip him up this way with a hip tip. So anytime your opponent grabs your leg to counter your gut wrench, when you have him loaded, there's actually 3 options that you can do. You can straighten your leg and pop him on over the top. You can use your foot and kick him on over the top. Or you can reach up and grab his wrist and go into a cross wrist combination. You can go into a hip tilt, or you can go into a ball and chain. One of the other